In this video, I'm joined by someone who some might say is a true giving tree in the Hex and PulseChain ecosystem, the founder of Hedron and Icosa himself. And today I want to find out more about him, his plans, his take on the future of PulseChain. So with no further ado, let me welcome Mr. Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
Great to see you. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on with me today. We are literally on the brink of PulseChain. I'm not sure if you saw Richard's last tweet. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did a few minutes ago, actually.
So less than 7 days by the looks of it. What do you think?
I mean, I've been saying since probably early May, like we're like around May 1st. So like based on what both Richard and I don't even know, is it like Bretep? I don't know how to pronounce his online handle, but one of the PulseChain devs who's active on Twitter, based on what they've been saying, I've been like, okay, like you guys are basically low-key saying most of this is ready to go. So, I've been saying in May for sure. So it's nice to see that I was right about that. That's cool.
Mid-May. If it's within 7 days, it's going to be mid-May, just a year later than expected.
Yeah, see, he's not wrong. It is mid-May.
Mid-May 2023. But yeah, the excitement on Twitter is palpable. I think, yeah, is it Brett Dev or something like that? Or
yeah,
yeah, he's the guy who's been putting out the tweets, and yeah, it's exciting, and hopefully it comes to fruition within 7 days. But while we're on that topic of PulseChain about to launch, you've got a grand plan of running thousands of nodes and validators and what's not. Maybe you could update us on that and tell us what that's about and how it's going, and how it's going to contribute to PulseChain.
Yeah. So, one of the big things that a lot of people don't think about, especially like just normal people in crypto who are using things, using their MetaMask, connecting to dApps and all that stuff. There is a vast array of centralized services that kind of make that function in a way. One of those is like known as Infura. It's owned by Consensus, or the same people who make MetaMask. And there's Alchemy. There's all sorts of other ones. And what they do is they provide RPC endpoints. And we're a bit fortunate that it seems like the PulseChain guys are also providing an RPC. It's like the Ethereum Foundation doesn't really provide RPCs; like they leave that to everybody else. So we'll have that. But one thing a lot of people need is like fast access to historical data. So one of the things I've been doing is kind of like trying to build this whole like data center just all about archive nodes, subgraphs, which is another thing developers use a lot to like pull particular bits of data off the chain very quickly. So it's kind of indexed somewhere else. Those are probably the two big things. Playing around with some validator things to see what can be done to make that easier for some people. There's a lot of options there, but yeah, I mean, I say most of my time right now is spent planning, either actively working or planning on things to do for PulseChain. Because I think having more service providers in the space, and I'm sure you know of Gamma, and a lot of people know of Gamma, and he's kind of offering his services for sale in the sense of like his expertise, right? Whereas my angle on this is more of like, okay, I want to be the person Gamma goes to when he needs resources for somebody. And that's going to probably all start fairly small, but the goal is that we can have these mature platforms similar to Infura, maybe even better than Infura, exist for PulseChain, so that anyone who wants to build anything, like there's resources to do it that are out there. I think that's incredibly important.
So just to, in layman's terms, it's adding more to the decentralization of the network.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Because awesome. Like as it is when PulseChain launches, like we'll have the RPC endpoints that are provided by the dev team, and those have limits, right? Like you can't create a public RPC endpoint for everybody and then also allow a guy to say, hey, I want every block to the history of time and I want it in like 5 minutes. Like I've not been able to do that on a testnet RPC, and I don't think mainnet RPC is going to let you do that either, because why would you, if you're just trying to have an RPC for people to do swaps on PulseX or something, you don't want to allocate a bunch of resources to this one guy, who needs all this historical stuff. So my kind of game plan is to have nodes that are more privatized. Like you create an account or something, and it's like, hey, I want an archive node with these specs, and you get it within a few minutes, and then you can run all your queries and do all that stuff. So that's kind of my plan.
So at the moment, how hard is it for someone to become a validator for PulseChain?
It's difficult, right? Because there's a couple of pieces to this. One is hardware. Like that's like the first bit. On a technical level, like you can go find like an old, like 3-5-year-old computer, really, as long as it can have an NVMe, like you can theoretically go get that, slap some Linux on it, and go to town, and have a validator that works. But people have different needs, and I'm constantly being messaged by people saying like, hey, I want to build a validator that I can put in my closet and forget about for 10 years. And it's like, if that's what you want to do, I mean, that will never happen, first of all, because you're going to have to go in and update the software occasionally. But assuming you're willing to at least do that, like the old 5-year-old desktop's not going to work. The Intel NUC is probably not the best option. It's not a bad option. It's one a lot of people are using. But I'm not entirely certain those consumer NVMEs will last 10 years. So like there's a lot of people with a lot of different goals and a lot of different mindsets about what they want out of being a validator. And some of those people are, I want to do it as cheaply as possible. Some are, I want to be somewhere in the middle. And then some people are like, I want to build the baddest, craziest thing that's not overkill, but going to last 10 years. And I don't really have to worry about it other than run some updates on it. So I think because of that variance, it makes it difficult for, like, I know a lot of people are trying to build these scripts that are like easy launch validator scripts. I don't think those are going to ultimately matter to a lot of people. It definitely, no matter what, if the most you know about a computer is turning it on and like double clicking Steam to play some video games, like you're screwed. Like you're not going to be a validator, like, unless you want to throw some serious time into it and learn a lot of things. Because there's just maintenance things. Like if you're running Geth, which everyone's running, or Go Pulse is what they call the fork, you have to prune the database every, like, I don't know, 6 months to a year, depending on how big your drive is. And like, there's maintenance-y things, and you have to know how to get around in Linux, because you can build these things and they will run on Windows, but not really. Like it's a pain in the ass. So yeah, it's a really long-winded answer to say that it's not easy. Like
I mean, it sounds like anything in life, right? A lot of the time, human nature, we want to get something and we want maintenance. We want passive income, or we want to, I don't know, take a shot of apple cider vinegar and it sort our health out. But most of the time in life, you need to maintain stuff, right? And I guess being a validator is no different. Like you said, the software needs to be updated. You need to go in there and prune certain things. So yeah, I mean, the more you can simplify this, the better. But I guess it's good to give people the truth up front. You're going to need to do some work along the line, even if it's minimal, to keep the ball rolling. I've got a comment here from Space D007. Rocket pull on PulseChain soon? ?
Maybe. So I haven't really figured out what I want to do as far as kind of like a validator pool, so to speak, right? There's one aspect of Rocket Pool that I don't like, and it's the Oracle DAO. The Oracle DAO is more or less a cool kids club, right? It's, the guys created it and said, oh, okay, Coinbase, okay, yeah, you're cool. You can be part of the Oracle DAO. And they, and so on and so forth. And they go to like their friends and they say, it's invite only if you want to be part of this Oracle DAO. And what that Oracle DAO does is very important, is it takes data that's on the beacon chain and takes it over and puts it on the execution chain so that Rocket Pool can do all of the rewards. That's a centralized thing that has to happen. There's no DeFi way to do that. So on the surface, it seems Rocket Pool takes like the more DeFi approach by putting it in a DAO, but because it's such an important role, they have to make it invite only. They can't just allow anyone to do that, because if they do, they risk like losing a bunch of people's money. So I'm stuck between thinking of like, well, should it even be a DAO or should it just be 100% centralized and not pretend that it's DeFi? Because
Mm.
really what the Oracle DAO does is everybody in that gets 15% of the RPL that's generated, and it's kind of like a cool kids club of sorts. You know, they get money for being part of that club. They have to do a little bit of work, but not a lot.
Okay.
So the other side of this that I'm thinking is like, oh well, what if instead of that? So you could do this, or you could do my other idea, which is you have a centralized service that provides um, execution and beacon chain nodes. You as the end user don't even have to be aware of what that means, but they're provided in a centralized way, and you at home just have to run the validator client. You don't have to sync anything. So like you could have like extremely low cost boxes that you give people, you know, but they hold their own keys to those validator nodes, right? So they would go through that process themselves, and that would allow them to have this little box, consumes almost no electricity. It does the validation, but the actual nodes that are computing that validation are somewhere else in a data center somewhere, or on AWS, or who knows where they would actually be. But that's like the other way, and that's 100% centralized in the validation aspect, except for the fact that you still get to hold your own keys, and the centralized entity doesn't have to know what your validator keys are. You have
Mm.
control of that piece. So like that's those are like the two ways I can imagine doing it, and I'm not sure which is the best way. Both are kind of centralized in the end at the end of the day.
So you're going to wait for mainnet to launch and then see how things play out and keep things sleeping on this one until you come to a decision?
Uh, Probably. I don't think there's any way you can do this even with Rocket Pool. I don't think there's a way it can be done quickly.
Mm.
Rocket Pool is actually fairly complicated, has a lot of moving parts, and all of that complexity is risk. So, you know, there's a pro and con to everything. So, regardless, though, I think it's something important. I think people who aren't very tech literate should be able to be a validator if they want to do that. And having a solution to that, whether it's something like Rocket Pool or whether you're doing it as like as a service that's being provided, either way, I think is valuable.
Gotcha. I know some recent updates on the last testnet helped it become more lucrative to be a validator, got better rewards. Do we know what we can expect, or how much value someone might get for being a validator?
I think what's on testnet v4 is probably pretty close to what you're going to see on mainnet.
Okay.
I don't know for sure if that's the case, but my gut says that's probably about it.
And it's a lot better than it was before?
Oh, it's like, I don't know. Someone in the comments probably knows the exact number, but I would say it's at least it's like 10x better than it was on V3.
Okay.
V3 was more or less a copy of what the stats were on Ethereum,
Mm.
and it just became apparent when you 10,000x the supply or whatever. Those kind of suck. But it's much better on V4, and I think that's why you're seeing this huge increase in people wanting to validate now, as they see, oh, these guys are like actually going to be getting a lot of pulse yield, so I want to do that.
Well, that's why a lot of people were moaning, right, about V4 and about this, but in fact, obviously, the more lucrative it is, the more people it's going to get to participate, and then more decentralization. So obviously, there's just being a bit more patient and having more people participating in it is going to be better for everyone. So it looks good. Just shifting gears a bit, obviously everyone knows you, or maybe they don't, but you're the founder of Hedron, and one of the most amazing and unique features of that is encapsulated stake. So I want to touch on that. Can you explain more about the importance of these for crypto and DeFi in general?
Yeah, so encapsulated stakes is trying to think of it in like the best layman's term, but it's turning a hex stake into an NFT. Really, like a lot of people don't fully understand all the aspects of how that work, but yeah, it's this ability to take something like a hex stake, tokenize it, and then at its core, the core piece of it is move that around to different addresses. And maybe that means trying to sell them on a marketplace, or maybe that just means, oh, you got a new hardware wallet and you want to go move them to that one without having to like keep the same seeds around. You can just do that. maybe you want to give one to someone as a gift. Like there's a whole lot of applications to this, and I think it's a huge. It reduces the barrier of entry to Hex that a lot of people don't necessarily realize exists. There's a lot of people that don't stake because of this idea that, oh well, what if I lose my wallet in this 15-year time, or what if I get compromised, or it's like committing to 15 years is a long time, and ultimately you want these people to stake 15 years. Like a lot of people are this mindset. It's like, oh well, these people would have never staked 15 years, so now they're competition later. It's like 15 years means that Hex is burnt, right? Like the Hex that is gone for 15 years. That's like one of the most important metrics. It's like, a lot of people point to like whatever the APY is, and I haven't even looked at what Hex's APY is in a while, but it's like most of Hex's appreciation came from the chart, not from staking. Staking was just a little bonus thing on top of that. And if you can get more people to be comfortable with effectively burning Hex for a longer period of time, I think you have a pretty powerful little thing there, and I think other people see that too, or else there wouldn't be like almost over 1 billion Hex locked up in HSIs.
Absolutely. I definitely think that people, obviously crypto is still a new asset class anyway, and then you're telling people to lock up for 12 months, 5 years, 15 years, and it's, a lot of people coming into crypto for the moon shot, and they hear this, and obviously it puts them off. And I know that I was one of those people. I got into crypto, I heard about fast gains, but obviously when I actually listened to stuff, Richard talk and Hex and staking, it made sense. But you're right, that a lot of people don't want to lock up for so long. So to have that ability to have, like you said, the stake as an NFT, which you could move between your own wallets or sell to someone else on the open market, it really does. It really makes it much more flexible for most people. So how's the HSI stakes? How are they getting traded? They're getting traded on, is it OpenSea?
They're on OpenSea. The most I see them in NFT forms, like either OpenSea or Rarible. I think they should be on Blur, but Blur's kind of like they're gatekeeping a little bit. They only want certain NFTs on their platform, so it is what it is. But the most common thing you see, at least the most I see action-wise, is through like Hedron has like an auction mechanic that Icosa, which is the other coin that I created, kind of uses a lot, and that's where you see the most action, which is people, live bidding on these HSIs through the Hedron auctions.
And how easy it is, just for someone who doesn't know, how easy it is. Let's say I had a Hedron stake and I want to sell it to you and what's not. How easy is it? Is it just like sending a transaction to you? Or
yeah, so all you have to do, if you have an HSI, all you have to do is tokenize it, which is like an action you do on the website or on Etherscan if you're privy, but most people are going to use the website. You just tokenize it, that turns it into the NFT, then it's just a transfer. Just send it to the different address, or you want to gift it to someone. I think it's powerful for gifts because you have, like, you can give someone liquid Hex, but they could just sell it, or you could give someone staked Hex, right? And maybe it's only for a year, or 6 months or whatever, but you're like, watch what this does in 6 months while you hold it. And I think that's a more powerful thing to do than sending liquid Hex to someone to see if they want to like test it out.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, just they could obviously, especially if the price is up and we're back in, prices we saw in 2021. But if you're staked, then obviously you've got some skin in the game. Now it's an amazing feature. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in PowerCity in the core we have encapsulated stakes, and you can trade those on Pixel Park, which will be the NFT platform on PulseChain. So it really is a game changer, and Hex is amazing. We're all hexagons. We're here because we love the product, but to be able to trade those back and forth and send those as gifts, and there being no, because obviously, like you said, we talked in the green room as well. You want to make things simple for people, and if we're talking about, giving keys up and having to try and trade stuff like that, it just becomes a mess, especially for newbies. So be able to send that as an NFT, and then the other person can hold on to that until it comes to fruition. And also, in that time they're waiting, they can obviously learn more about crypto and DeFi. So even if at the time you send it to them, they think, I want to dump this straight away. But like many, like myself, when you start to hear the truth about Hex or PulseChain and what's not, it kind of it kind of educates you, so you stop thinking about the next dog coin and start looking at real DeFi like Hedron, Icosa, and everything that's being built on PulseChain. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about Hedron and Icosa for the people that don't know much about it.
Yeah, so the too long didn't read part of it is Hedron's a token that rewards people for staking Hex, or I should say creating Hex miners. If you have one of those, you can effectively just mint Hedron based upon how many shares it has every day, or you can let it build up and mint larger amounts just by allowing it to accrue. Hedron has some borrowing mechanics, so if you want to be able to borrow some Hedron tokens that you otherwise would have to wait for, you could do that if the stake is encapsulated. And Icosa is effectively just a staking system for Hedron and itself. That's kind of the simplistic part of it. If you want to know more, I'd say the best place is probably to go to Telegram. So like that's t.me/Hedron crypto or Icosa crypto. Ask questions. There are people in there that spend almost their entire lives just drilling down data, and there's great tooling, constantly new tooling and stuff the community comes up with impresses me honestly a lot of the time. So if you want to know more about the details, I'd go there.
So jump into the TG and ask away then.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let's bring it back to PulseChain. Obviously, like we said, we're on the brink of it. What's the potential of PulseChain in your eyes in the short term and the long term?
So I think it's going to depend a lot on kind of the entire crypto ecosystem and how it evolves from this point on. But this is going to be the first time you see this as, there's been forks before where people have, okay, I want to fork this, want to keep the state the same. But usually those forks are like ETHW or ETHF, where they're trying to like not progress, right? They're like, oh, we like the old way, so we want to stay the old way. And to my knowledge, there's never been a fork of something that says, we don't like the direction this is going. We think there's a critical flaw here, so we're going to change this and then go this other direction with it and see what happens. I think that's incredibly powerful at the first point of it. And the second part of that is I foresee in the future the ability to actually load balance between chains. Like, I don't like this whole layer 2 idea that we have now, where you have like the polygons or whatever, all these EVM chains that are worse, that are on top of Ethereum, and their goal is to make Ethereum faster, which I don't really understand how that's supposed to work, because you can't take a transaction, like you can't use Polygon and do something on Ethereum through Polygon. Like, you can use a bridge to get there, but they're not, it's hampered by the non-interoperability. So the way I think the future will be is a lot of basically layer 1s, where maybe it's copied state, maybe it's not, but at the end of the day, tons of layer 1s, and then a way to interact on both, to do something on one chain and do something on another chain, but interface with it like the layer 2 is the person. Layer 2 shouldn't be this other chain. Like, layer 2 doesn't need to be a chain. It can be a person, it can be some kind of new type of protocol. I think with the guys, I don't know if you're familiar with Stargate, I think they might be kind of on the right idea, but we'll see how that goes. It's kind of experimental space, but I think the future is a lot of layer 1s that maybe they can't all directly talk to each other, but there's something that enables them to effectively talk to each other. Okay. And that kind of goes along with this idea of horizontal scaling, where maybe you do some things on PulseChain, maybe you do it on Ethereum, doesn't really matter, right? The chain that you're actually acting on only really matters for the thing that you want that's there, and then you can go do something with it somewhere else. I think that's going to be the ultimate future, and I think PulseChain probably is going to be the first to kind of kick off that idea. So we're
with the
in a
fact,
weird space, you know.
yeah. I mean, the fact that you like you said, if you're on Ethereum but you want it cheaper, you have to use a layer 2, and then the human should be the layer 2. So really, you're going right into another layer, and it's getting weird. And the fact that we can use everything on one layer on PulseChain, how long do you think? Because obviously the fees are going to start fractions of a penny. How long do you think that it will take? Let's say we get mass adoption and PulseChain becomes a big Ethereum rival, you know, maybe even bigger than Ethereum in the future. How long do you think it would take before the gas fees crept up to an untenable amount?
So I think the biggest thing against it is token price, right? Like that's really the kicker for gas. If you look at Ethereum now, like what they're charging gas wise for a transaction makes sense from an Ethereum level, right? Like if you kind of forget about the US dollar, and you think pure crypto, like for the amount of Ethereum it costs to do these transactions, that makes sense. It just happens that that token is worth thousands of dollars. So now it's expensive from a US dollar perspective. I think it will take a very long time for PulseChain to get to the point where that's a huge problem with the amount of supply increasing that we have. So I think you'll actually see on a Pulse level higher fees than you see on Ethereum, simply because people are going to be a little bit more, either more greedy, or people are going to be a little more like not caring, right? Like you might hit max gas fee just to do it because it's effectively like less than a penny to you. You don't care, and that's going to like kind of make the cost of each transaction higher if everybody's doing that. So it's possible that we have like in a Pulse level higher gas fees, but in the actual cost, it'll be significantly less for a
Gotcha.
long time, unless every single person who's hacked holds all of their Pulse and does nothing with it, which I think is unlikely. But if everybody does that, well then, you know, maybe it's not so. Maybe the fees will be a little crazy.
But just going back to what you said, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? So you have gas fees are right for the amount that on Ethereum that the token's worth. So obviously the token's worth so much now that the gas has gone up. How come for people asking, how come changing to proof of stake hasn't helped?
Well, proof of stake makes it worse because now you're in a situation where, like, during the mining of Ethereum, back when it was proof of work, like technically Ethereum was still net inflationary. Now it's net deflationary. They're burning more Ethereum than they're creating. So yeah, it will only exacerbate the problem. Like right now, I think you see with like we're in the middle of a bear market, and just the other day for like almost for like 3 to 4 days, like we were over 200 Gwei because one token was doing something. It's kind of nuts. Like what happens when there's 3 tokens doing something? Is it gonna be 1,000 Gwei? Like, is it gonna literally cost $1,000 to do a swap on Uniswap? Like, yeah,
It's
like they need to do something about it. I don't know what their solution is going to be. But I think the PulseChain method of just, hey, let's just like massively increase the supply. I think that's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. Like you said, in the middle of a bear market, and it's still yesterday. I tried to send an ERC20. It was like $15 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and it doesn't help that MetaMask lies about gas. This is
oh, really?
This is probably the crux of it all. MetaMask overestimates a little. Like gas estimation sucks, basically, right? Like it is. If you ask an Ethereum node, hey, what should I pay for gas for this? It's probably wrong. It's probably because it only has the data that's in its mempool. So really, you need to query like all the Ethereum nodes in existence to get an accurate amount of gas, which is not possible. So there's a centralized service that a lot of these guys run that talks to a lot of nodes and averages that out. And then MetaMask presents you the gas price it costs to make this transaction go through right now, right? You do it in the next block or the block after that, your transaction's probably going to get in there. For something like Uniswap, that makes sense because those are time limited things, right? Because if you put a swap in and it takes 30 minutes to happen, well, the prices could change and then your transaction fails because the price changed. But for like ending a hex stake or hex miner, like, you know, theoretically you have 14 days, right? That transaction could sit in mempool for 14 days and then get executed. And you would be, other than you not having your hex for 14 days because you're waiting on it, there would be no problem. So I wish in MetaMask there was a clear way to do this. But one thing I tell people to do a lot of time is like go into advanced in MetaMask, set your gas price lower, give the validator a tip, and then increase the gas limit like 10-20%, which you pretty much won't need, but it guarantees that it's going to sit there and wait for it to actually execute. And just let it sit there. And I bet usually within like 6 hours to 2 days, like that transaction will go through. And one particular block where there wasn't a transaction that was going to fit there, and the validator is just like, oh, okay, well, here's this guy. He's been here for 3 days. Let's just throw his stuff in here. And you just did it for half price when you do that. So, gas is a weird thing, but I think PulseChain solution is the right answer.
Do you think, the narrative has been banded around that people are going to abandon Ethereum and PulseChain is going to, have a mass influx? Do you think that's the case, or do you think it's going to be more slow drip over time as people find out about it?
It will take time. So, like, here's the thing that I'm looking at, and this is the grand question. If you would have, a year ago, if you would have asked me to talk to you about projects that succeed, like if someone asked me, hey, how do I find a crypto project that's going to be successful? I would have told you it's impossible. It's just luck. 99% of them just die. And, you just got to figure it out. I actually don't feel that way anymore. I think 99% of them are just bad. And it's like, if you make something that's at least halfway decent, it may not appreciate, it may not be this great thing, but it will at least live. You know what I mean? At least exist. So what I think will happen is anyone who's built anything on Ethereum who cares about their users, which is a very small subset of people who make things on Ethereum. The vast majority of people who make things are just basically building scams or rugs or tax tokens or whatever. But if you built something and you care about it, and you care about your users, and you see them complaining in your chats that they're spending $200 to swap something on Uniswap, that's the prime candidate. Those are the people that are going to be like, okay, well, I know PulseChain forked my thing. It kind of went over with that. Let's just put a UI up for it and see what happens. And I think you're going to see projects, two types of projects, either ones that just want to care about their users and say, hey, you can go use this free copy. We don't know if it'll be worth anything, but here's the user interface for it. Or projects that are basically dead because their gas is too expensive and no one wants to use it, can now just be like, oh, well, now you can go use it here. And I didn't have to do any work. You know what I mean? Like, these guys won't have to do anything other than change a couple lines of code in their website. So I don't think it's going to be a massive overnight, like everyone announces, oh, we're going to PulseChain, but the writing's on the wall. There are going to be many times in Ethereum's life moving forward where it's so expensive, and the narrative to say, oh, well, your whatever coin is on PulseChain, why don't you just go use it there? And I think that's going to be a powerful thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that I would love everyone to jump over, right, and take it on board. I know there's been some people that have come out and kind of been quite dismissive about it, but I think you can't ignore a good thing for too long, right? So when we see, obviously, the basic tenets of cheaper, faster, whatever, but then it's not going to be much work, like you said, change a few lines of code here and there. So the more that join, a crowd attracts a crowd, so to say. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see for that. What's your view in the long term? Like for you, let's say 12 months, 24 months, 3 years down the line, everything's played out perfectly in your eyes. What does PulseChain look like?
It has a lot of apps on it, some good, some bad, but it has a lot of them. And I don't know, I see it will probably have a good time tracking Ethereum's upgrades, right? When Ethereum comes out with something, I would imagine PulseChain would be pretty close behind it. It may even in 3 years, it may even have its own things, where its developers have come up with something that is different than what Ethereum did and implemented that. So I think we'll see the two chains diverge a good amount. And I think you'll see a lot of people move over. Maybe not exclusively, but I think over like the first couple of years, there's going to be a lot of projects that say, okay, we're going to go support this. We're going to play around here, see what happens. And I think that the tokenomics of Pulse are right. I think the tokenomics of PulseX are pretty close to right. Like nobody knows what's going to happen with incentive token, but anyone can build anything, right? So who knows who will build something that uses the incentive token?
That's true.
But I just see opportunity really. Like it's a chain that seems to be done right, that has all of the core pieces in place. We have a community that cares way more than any other community about their own stuff. Like I don't know what it is about us, but for whatever reason, there are way more people in like the Hex Pulse space that care about these things than like if you go to like the Shiba space. Like it's just a bunch of people saying "Win Moon." It's like I don't know what we did to attract all the people like me and you guys and Buck, and I'm forgetting more than half of them because there's so many, but there's a lot of good people trying to do something cool, and some of them will probably fail, and it may take them a couple iterations. But when I see this many people who care about something and want to do cool things, that excites me, and that tells me there's opportunity. So that I think the first 3 years is going to be super awesome.
Interesting. Yeah, it's true what you say. I mean, not just SHIB, but any, like you said, 99% of the stuff being built is scams. And you go in any of the telegrams and it's just emojis and GIFs and when moon, and like it literally hurts your brain after 2 seconds. And obviously I'm biased, you're biased, we're hexagons and what's not, but Hex and Pulse community seem to be cut from a different cloth, right? Meetups, people like you building amazing stuff on top of it. People like the other teams, all the stuff. There's too much to name here, right? PulseChain was announced in 2021, and of course, the delay has been annoying, and we wanted it to launch sooner. But because of that nearly 2 years that's gone by, all these amazing things have been built on top of it as well, or are going to be launched on when it's live. So there is a difference with this community for sure, and I felt it when I first got into crypto. When I had that kind of naive moon boy mindset, I want to put in, get 1000x and what's not. And then when I came across Hex and PulseChain, I started to slow down and get educated. And it's definitely a very strong community. What do you think is going to happen to your babies on PulseChain, Hedron and Icosa?
I think they will do fine, if not better. The biggest complaint in all terms is gas. It's, I don't want to mint my Hedron because that costs $7. And like from my perspective, I'm sitting here, it's like, do you have any idea how much work I put in to ensure that only costs $7? It's ridiculous, right? As a developer, I shouldn't have to like come up with special ways of doing things so that it doesn't cost more than a meal at McDonald's to do it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of ridiculous on the Ethereum side. But that's always the biggest thing. It's like, in particular, auctions, right? It's like there were times when we were hitting those high gas feed days where like a bid was $13, and then there were times like 5 minutes after the bid was $6, and then it was $18, and then it was $3, and it was just all over the place. And a lot of people don't want to do things on the blockchain when it costs so much to do it. So I think any protocol that has like user activity, and like auctions is one of those, will do much better on PulseChain because people will be more likely to participate because they don't have to be fearful of like racking up $100 or $200 in gas, because like when every bid's like a $7 fee, and that's like not the worst I've seen. You could rack up $100, $150 a fee pretty quick if you're active. So I think any protocol out there that's kind of demanding a little bit of consistent action will do much better on PulseChain than on Ethereum.
Yeah,
Hedron
I mean,
being one of those.
for sure. I mean, the way you just disqualify so many people, right? I think in the height of 2021, unless you're a whale, how could you play on Ethereum? You know what I mean? Like a couple of $100 to do a swap, and who's going to do that? So yeah, it's just going to be the lower the fees, which obviously PulseChain is going to be fractions of a penny. The more we're going to see play, for sure. This is going to be one of my last questions, but people keep asking about the beard, proof of beard. Is it going to come off when PulseChain goes live, or is it here to stay?
I don't know. I might trim it, but like I have not touched this since last May, so it's been a year.
Wow.
So someone a long time ago said like, hey, let's not shave till PulseChain launch. I was like, okay, that's fine. So I might trim it a little. It's getting like, it's not so much like, like right now it's oiled, I can brush it in. So like it looks shaped, but it actually isn't. Like if I brush it out, it looks horrible. But so like I might trim it a little. But the biggest thing for me is like the other day I was putting some servers together in the data center, and I powered one on, and like the fan got a couple beard hairs out of it. I'm like, okay, that's a problem. Can't have that. So
you've got to be careful. Yeah, maybe you need to. There needs to be some beard safety tips about dealing with servers and fans and what's not.
Yeah, it's like running a validator is not safe if you have a beard.
Well, listen, man, this has been awesome. Where can people find out more about you and your products and what's not?
Yeah, just head over. Probably the best place is either Twitter. So it's Synergy. It's SIN3R6Y. I made that when I was 12. And yeah, that's me on Twitter. And or just go to any of the Hedron or Icosa telegrams. I hang out there. I hang out in the Hex telegrams. I'm practically everywhere, man. If people want to find me, it's pretty easy.
They want to find you, they can. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for your time, for coming on. Yeah, you're a savant in the community, and I look forward to seeing what you do on PulseChain and how Hedron and Icosa performs, and seeing all those HSI stakes being able to be traded at a much cheaper price.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Alex. Take care. Guys, definitely go and check out the Hedron and Icosa Telegram and Alex's products, Encapsulated Stakes, game changer. And if you like content like this, do hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new videos. And tomorrow I will be on with Jesse talking all about the Earn protocol, which is now live on the V4 testnet. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.